This is CBS News Bay Area with Juliette Goodrich.
Good evening. A new bill just signed into law could make building new housing a lot cheaper and faster, but some environmental groups are pushing back. The California Environmental Quality Act was first introduced in 1970 to protect sensitive environmental areas from excessive development. But more recently, it's been used to slow down or even block some development projects. Katie Nielsen has one surprising reason why that has nothing to do with threatened habitats.
This empty lot was supposed to be an apartment complex with 222 units. It's right across the street from the West Oakland BART station, but because of a CEQA lawsuit, it never even got started.
Transit-oriented urban infill area, as you can see, there won't be environmental impacts from the development.
Robert Selna is an attorney who's represented developers trying to build new housing, much like the project that was supposed to go here at the empty field across the street from the West Oakland BART station.
If you have abandoned spaces, they're going to be filled with something. Is it better for them to be filled with houses, or is it better to be filled with garbage?
Robert said he's familiar with the project and the developers, and everything was moving ahead, but then faced a 1.5-year-long delay when they were hit with a CEQA lawsuit, not filed by environmental groups, but instead labor unions. And according to a letter sent to the Planning Commission, it was specifically Plumbers and Pipefitters Local 342, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 595, Sheet Metal Workers Local 104, and Sprinkler Fitters Local 483.
Developer, we want you to meet our labor standard demands. If you don't, there's an opportunity for us to object to your project, oppose your project, appeal your project based on CEQA.
Robert says with the projects using existing sites in the middle of the city, the real issue isn't environmental concerns. He says it's usually that labor unions want the developers to use union labor during the construction process. He says on average, it can drive up the cost by about $50,000 per unit.
The vast majority of lawsuits that have resulted from opposition to projects based on CEQA have been urban infill housing projects.
CEQA is one tool that project opponents have used to stop or slow down housing and other forms of development.
Chris Elmendorf is a professor at UC Davis and an expert in the laws surrounding development. He says, according to a study from the California Center for Jobs and the Economy, CEQA lawsuits were filed in almost half of the housing going into production in 2020.
It's not right that any one random person or group should have the right to put any project they don't like on hold for a year or 2 or 3 years simply by filing a lawsuit.
Robert says the changes to the law make sense and was also long overdue.
There really aren't environmental impacts because in a place like Oakland, because they've already been studied. It's already a built environment. There aren't special status species or agricultural lands or protected environments.
We reached out to all of the labor unions involved in the lawsuit here at the West Oakland site, but none of them responded to our request for comment.
Republicans in Sacramento are blasting Newsom for only now trying to make it easier to build. Meantime, a Sierra Club spokesperson says these half-baked bills written behind closed doors will have destructive consequences for environmental justice communities and endangered species across California. All right, now let's get to some breaking news. We're keeping an eye on a couple of fires, including this one that's sending up a towering column of smoke. Okay, that went to black there, and we're told possibly because of the heat that's affecting the camera view there. This one is happening in Yolo County, north of Winters, in the community of Esparto. So these are live pictures from Chopper 5. Our pilot telling us that they saw what looked like an explosion. There you go. It's going in and out, and that's because of the fire's heat. And then we saw a giant cloud. So we're being told this involves a commercial building, and we're certainly working to get more information on this. Meantime, crews are mopping up from a grass fire near Vacaville. So this is video from a few minutes ago. CAL FIRE says forward progress has been stopped, but earlier they did issue some evacuation orders for people near Browns Valley Road and Bridge Lane, but things are looking better now. Governor Newsom is saying the feds need to step up and help pay for wildfire prevention efforts in the state. He's focused on fires that start and spread across federal land, like the Caldor fire from a few years ago in the Sierra. Newsom even drafted an executive order he says the president can sign, actually committing money and resources for western states. So Devin Feely joining me now with exactly what the governor wants. Devin.
Yeah, this is just more of the back and forth between the governor and the president. But this is an interesting statistic. The governor says 57% of the land in all of California is actually under federal control. And he says the state has been footing the bill to take care of it. Now, speaking at a CAL FIRE event in this year, Newsom said that since 2019, California has spent $350 million to maintain federal land. He said the state needs federal help as we head into the peak of fire season, and he cited fires like the ranch fire that burned on federal land.
Half of the new fire starts just over the course of the last 48 hours have been on federal land, just associated specifically in the last 24 with the lightning strikes in Northern California. We need an equivalent commitment of resources, not rhetoric.
So far, the president hasn't responded to the governor's comments or his draft executive order. Meanwhile, 150 members of the California National Guard are back on wildfire duty after being deployed in Los Angeles. They were part of a specialized crew of Guard members trained to fight wildfires. They were part of the thousands of troops deployed by the president during ICE protests. In a statement today, Newsom said it's time to send all of the National Guard members who were deployed in Los Angeles back home, Jules.
All right, Devin, thank you so much. Well, California and 19 other states are suing the Trump administration for sharing personal health data with immigration officials. The lawsuit accuses the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services of allowing ICE access to Medicaid data. California says it exposes confidential health information and immigration status.
This has absolutely nothing to do with protecting or preserving or improving the Medicaid program. This isn't about cutting waste or going after fraud. This is about going after vulnerable people who entrusted the state and the federal government to help them access health care.
Bonta says this could also prevent people from going to seek health care they need. He's asking the court to block new transfer or use of data for immigration enforcement purposes. All right, our cameras caught this scene at the Golden Gate Bridge just this morning. FBI agents at the Welcome Center near the toll plaza. We did some checking and learned agents were assisting ICE with an enforcement action. The FBI would not say anything more than that, and ICE has not returned our requests for information or gotten back to us. It is not clear who they were targeting. Well, people worried about immigration enforcement are afraid of going to work. A couple in Southern California had an idea to help street vendors they know. Reporter Alice Martinez joined them on their shifts.
Another day, another shift for Marisol Magana, handing out corn and shaved ice on the streets of Santa Ana. Only it's not her cart and she's not a street vendor. Magana is filling in for someone who hasn't worked in weeks, too afraid to go outside and risk being picked up by immigration agents.
I've learned a lot about the people who we buy from. They're so hardworking. I know a lot of that people think that they're criminals, but they're not. They're fathers, sons, mothers, daughters.
After Magana ran out of food, she gave the vendor $1,000 plus tips. Days earlier, Magana and her partner, Andrew Roa, pushed another vendor's cart through the streets, selling her goods, then giving her hundreds of dollars at the end of the day.
Muchísimas gracias, señorita, de verdad.
The money coming from an online fundraiser the couple started.
They want to stay home because they want to be safe, but they have to be out there to make ends meet, and that's what we're trying to get them home safe for and get them off the street at least for a day.
Some, like this flower vendor from Venezuela, are taking their chances outside. Magana and Roa bought all of his bouquets so he could head home early. They also gave him a $150 tip.
Most of them have cried or not known what to say, and it's been tough for us too. You know, it's a very heartfelt thing.
Hey, leave him alone, bro.
Just around the corner from here, ICE detained a father of 3 Marines last month. The couple says those images of that arrest sent shockwaves through this community.
A lot of ICE and them come into the community and just picking people off the street without any real reason to question them, you know, so it's a very scary thing.
The two say most people have been supportive, but tell us they've taken some criticism online from people in favor of the immigration efforts. But the couple says that won't stop them from using the money they raise to help as many vendors as possible.
I don't understand how you can have so much hatred in your heart, especially for people who don't bother you. We're all the same, we're all human beings.
Now to some headlines from around the Bay Area. Police in Fremont investigating a deadly shooting this morning. Officers found the victim in the area of North Point Loop next to Cushing Parkway just after 10:30. Police detained a possible suspect near the scene. The Clipper card system is back up and running after an outage that lasted for about 6 hours today. Transit stations throughout the Bay Area kept their fare gates open and gave free rides until they resolved the issue. Officials have not pinpointed exactly what happened, but they aren't ruling out fare increases as a potential cause. Muni, Caltrain, and the San Francisco Bay Ferry all raised their fares today. The cable car also increased its fare for the first time since 2020 from $8 to $9. Minimum wage has gone up in several spots across the Bay Area today. The biggest jump in Sonoma County, where it jumped 28%, now up to $23.15 an hour. In San Francisco and Berkeley, it rose to $19.18. It's up to $19.90 in Emeryville. All right, still ahead here at 6. Sensors underground are giving us more information about seismic activity, and it's shaking up what we thought we knew about earthquakes.
We want to catch an earthquake right as it's beginning.
If you have a car that is a 2000 model or older, you can get $2,000 for voluntarily retiring your car. The Bay Area Air District increased the incentive for its buyback program today in an effort to reduce emissions. The car must be drivable and registered in the Bay Area within the past 2 years. For over a century, the technology used to measure and monitor earthquakes has remained largely unchanged. But now, scientists are using modern sensors to get more accurate and widespread information. Brian Hackney shows us how fiber lines, the type that give us access to the internet, are helping Bay Area seismologists.
We're at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory at Building 121.
And inside Building 121?
We monitor earthquakes.
Gene Ichinose and Tim Brandt monitor them inside this room using this machine, the interrogator. What's it interrogating?
The fiber.
Fiber optic cable, that is, which Tim taped to the floor, and even the lightest tap is digitally recorded. And that's a big step forward.
So we're at Coyote Point in San Mateo, and this is a seismic station.
USGS seismologist Anne-Marie Bolte climbs toward more familiar gear.
And this is the more traditional way of measuring seismic waves?
Yes, this is a very high-quality instrument.
This equipment gives us the familiar traces of ground motion, but there is a downside.
Right here, we have one recording at one location. It only tells us about the geology right here.
But hundreds of miles of fiber optic cable already buried under the Bay Area not only brings us the internet, it brings us thousands of virtual seismometers measuring the tiniest tickle of ground motion.
After we plugged this in our experiment, we noticed immediately vehicles driving around city streets. We saw a Caltrain, and then we saw our first earthquake.
We are coming on the air tonight with an earthquake that rattled the East Bay.
We recorded the Dublin earthquake, interrogating the full 80 kilometers.
That means instead of a few seismometers recording local shaking, Gene's machine recorded ground motion every 30 feet along 50 miles of fiber optic cable buried from San Francisco to Sunnyvale, the equivalent of 8,000 seismometers.
This is probably one of the best recorded earthquakes with such density and scale.
And more data could someday mean more insight. Take Northridge. Maybe $50 billion worth of damage in 30 seconds and a total surprise.
It's on a previously unknown fault.
Is it possible to uncover a hidden fault with this new system?
Yeah, it's possible to uncover a hidden fault because we're getting, again, information on a very fine scale.
Another tremendous upside of fiber, it's cheaper. Installing this single traditional seismometer costs about $100,000. For the same money, the interrogator virtually installs thousands.
Fiber's already in the ground. You don't have to do any digging.
And since the buried fiber might be much closer to the next epicenter,
For earthquake early warning, we want to catch an earthquake right as it's beginning.
And every millisecond counts.
Every millisecond counts, and then we can get you a warning a little bit quicker that waves are coming to your house.
the more modern technique is shaking up seismology.
It is. It's a really exciting concept, and it's going to open all kinds of doors for really creative, interesting studies for us to understand the Earth better.
The scientists tell us this technology was developed at Stanford nearly a decade ago and is now being rolled out by the officials at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory.
Back here, without the ground moving under our feet, at least not too much. There were a few small earthquakes in the South Bay today. Temperatures got up into the 70s, 80s, and 90s inland. A wide range of temperatures even away from the water. Only upper 70s in Santa Rosa, but all the way up into the low 90s in Concord. The 90s will be fewer and farther between the next couple of days, and it looks cool for Independence Day. Details on that holiday weekend forecast coming up.
We have an update on that explosion and fire we showed you earlier in the show. So we want to get to some live pictures of the incident in Yolo County. This is from our chopper right now. And unfortunately, the heat from the smoke is actually causing some camera issues. But it's happening at a commercial facility. There you go. There is a wide debris field from that, and it is being called explosion area. The blast was captured on a wildfire alert camera, so you can see the towering cloud of smoke. Look at that. In fact, our chopper pilot covering another fire saw that cloud going up. And in the past few minutes, we've been seeing smaller explosions. This happening in a field near the main building. Winters Police just provided an update on social media saying they are investigating the cause of the large explosion. Several streets have been shut down. So it's certainly a good time to talk about our weather conditions in that area. Let's bring in Paul Hagan to talk about the wind possibly and other factors.
Yeah, you saw all the little things going off there. I mean, pretty easy to assume that fireworks were a cause of that, and that's going to be the concern for the next several days. Fortunately, the weather isn't going to cause any additional problems. Mentioned at 5 o'clock, it's really kind of the the knucklehead factor of people using illegal fireworks and causing problems.
Word for that.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Words.
Yes, exactly. Let's take a look at how the pattern is going to shape up as we head through the next couple of days. This is a representation of today's temperatures, and we had the usual contrast of cool at the coast and flat out hot through the Central Valley, where temperatures were well into the 90s, if not over 100 degrees. But take a look at the temperature pattern for Friday. Everything backs down significantly. We are going to be quite a bit cooler around the Bay Area. In fact, the entire state is going to be cooler for the 4th of July. Doesn't mean the fire threat is going to go down again because of the knucklehead factor, but our temperatures are going to be running about 5 to 10 degrees below average for the 4th of July. It's likely going to be the coolest day that we see over the course of the next 7 to 10 days. Looking outside right now, this is the view from the Mark Hopkins Hotel, and you can see the fog swallowing up the tops of downtown San Francisco's buildings, where the temperature is down to 59 degrees. Still in the 60s in Oakland, but only 4 degrees warmer across the bay. 70s for Santa Rosa and San Jose, with still 80s in Concord and Livermore. Livermore just barely below 90 degrees. So, 30-degree difference between the coolest and warmest locations on the map right now. As we head through the rest of tonight, we are going to see the fog spreading back out. Let's take a look at the local map and track that fog as we head through the overnight hours. And it's going to make a good push into the inland valleys of the South Bay and the Santa Clara Valley, into the North Bay as well, but not as much of a push across the Oakland Hills and into interior portions of the East Bay. And the fog will retreat as we head through the first half of the day. It won't pull away from the coast, though, so temperatures are going to be still cool at the coast while they do warm up to a greater extent farther inland. You see where the really warm air is going to be living just a little bit farther off to our east. We had a number of spots in the 90s today. Those are going to be very plentiful over the next couple of days. San Jose stays below 80 degrees tomorrow. Temperatures east of the Oakland Hills, mostly 80s to around 90 degrees near Antioch and Brentwood. Temperatures around the Bay, mostly in the 70s, with 60s in San Francisco. Near 60 degrees along the coast. That's as far as you're going to go, with 70s and 80s and 90s, depending on your proximity to the water in the North Bay. I think Santa Rosa is going to be quite a bit warmer than the high temperatures that you saw today. The wind isn't going to be too much of a factor yet tomorrow, but that's going to pick up as we head through Thursday. So some gusts in the 25 to 30 mile an hour range by Thursday afternoon, going to be pushing that cooler air a little bit farther inland. And Friday's temperatures are going to be substantially cooler. Take a look at the 10-day temperature outlook for San Jose, dipping down to the lowest level on the 4th of July, almost 10 degrees below normal, but then much closer to average through the rest of the holiday weekend. Just realized that I forgot to put the dog walking forecast into the sequence. We'll show you that coming up at 7 o'clock. Let's take a look at the 7-day forecast, and it's going to be a little up and down, but mostly near average. Friday is the outlier, the coolest day in sight. Otherwise, inland temperatures mostly in the low to mid 80s, which is pretty close, if slightly short of where we're supposed to be this time of the year. Bayside temperatures are going to stay near 70 the next couple of days, cooler on Friday, and whenever the temperatures cool off in early July, you know that no sky July is going to be more of a factor, likely for fireworks displays by the water by Friday. That's something we'll keep you updated on. A little too early at this point for hour-by-hour details on Friday evening, but we will watch that as we head through the rest of this week. Coastal temperatures, no surprise, not going anywhere. Jules?
All right, Paul, thank you. When we come back with 4th of July around the corner, medical experts are suggesting you leave the fireworks to the professionals. Please. Here's a look at what's ahead on the CBS Evening News.
Tonight, a Minnesota woman's race to protect her neighbors against an invisible danger. Please join us for the CBS Evening News.
Alameda County leaders are bracing for potential fire dangers ahead of the July 4th holiday. Fire crews in Berkeley, Oakland, and Alameda are expected to be on the lookout for any illegal firework activity. The city of Berkeley is also closing areas on July 4th to reduce fire risk, including Grizzly Peak Boulevard and connecting intersections at Claremont Avenue, Lomas Cantadas, South Park, and Skyline Boulevard. Closures start at 5 a.m. and they will last for 24 hours. In Santa Clara County, local leaders are warning residents to stay safe and follow the law when it comes to July 4th fireworks celebrations. Lighting fireworks are illegal in Santa Clara County, but emergency officials say they are still expecting a 15 to 20% call volume increase on Friday. Dr. Clifford Schechter, who runs the Regional Burn Center at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center, says the most common injuries come from explosives such as mortars.
Last year, we took care of a gentleman whose mortar round did not go off as planned, and he went to check the cannon when it discharged and then led to fracturing his skull and putting gunpowder just in front of his brain.
The EMS agency says about 15,000 people were sent to the emergency room for firework-related injuries last year nationwide. They say it led to 11 deaths. Let's all be safe. CBS Evening News with Maurice Dubois and John Dickerson is next on KPIX. We have local news on our streaming service. We'll see you back here in 30 minutes for more news at 7.